All right, you guys anxious to hear from the word of the Lord today? I'm anxious to share with you today. I really am. Providence, things don't happen by a chance. I believe that God has something good for us today, especially in lieu of what we've been seeing in the news over the last 2 days. Guys, it is so different. It is so different for us today. For you and for me today. You're with me, right? You're hearing me. It is so different for us today than it was for those who were our age 75 years ago. It is so different. Did you understand what I said? Guys, it is night and day different. And I mean, you know what it looks like at night. And you know what it looks like at day. It is night and day different for our kids today than when it was when we were our kids' age, let alone when our parents were our kids' age. And guys, just as there are different seasons to the year, and we recognize this right now, just as there are different seasons to the year over the past 2,000 plus years since the coming of Jesus, there have been different seasons. And as we've been talking about already this morning, seasons are easy to recognize. They are easy to see. We are right now in the midst of a change in the season right now. A week ago, it was 86, 87 degrees, and I remember thinking, why am I wearing long pants? And now, today, the leaves are turning these beautiful shades of red and yellow and orange and brown. Several of you will go to Brown County on Saturday, and you will see this more so firsthand in the abundance of all the trees in the forest and all those things. Guys, this morning, Amy had her car running as we walked outside. The heated seats were already on. In the mornings and in the evenings, it is really, really chilly. It is really, really crisp. Deanna and Tony went to their grandson's football game. I can't say his name. Tegan, who is the kicker and the field goal guy for the school. Hamilton Heights, football, undefeated, who's already has offers to go to college on free ride scholarships to kick and stuff, okay? And yet, it was cold that night, Dina, wasn't it? It was cold. In fact, it was so cold that today Tony is where right now? In bed, home with the cold, okay? This is what happens during the changes of seasons. The mornings in the fall are crisp and cold. Same thing at night. While in the middle of the day, the sun is actually more direct and is actually warmer and even hotter than it is in the middle of the summer. Guys, as we've talked about, the Bible speaks an awful lot about the last days. For the past 6 months, I've been speaking an awful lot about the last days. And guys, while we cannot know the specific day or the hour of Jesus' return, the Bible does say that we can recognize and we can know the what? The season. You can know the season. If I had a picture of people standing in snow and going like this, and you saw their breath and everything, you would pretty well know or assume that the season from that photo was what? If you saw people in tank tops and their faces were red and they were all sweaty, you would probably know or assume that it was what season? If you saw leaves falling and kids playing and people drinking apple cider and stuff, you would assume or probably know that the season is. And if you saw people dressed in prom dresses and flowers blooming everywhere and the grass as green as we see it all year round, and you heard the sound of from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you would probably, and the Pacers not in the playoffs, you would know that it is probably spring. Guys, we can't know the day or the hour, but we can know the season. I like what Jesus said, recorded in Matthew chapter 24, verses 32 and 33. It's on the screen. Jesus said, learn the lesson from the fig tree. Now, we don't have fig trees like they do in Israel right now. But it says, nevertheless, learn the lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender, as soon as they stop being really hard and they get tender and they begin to droop a little bit and the leaves begin to pop out, you have that big pod and that pod, begins to explode and the leaves start coming out. When you see these things happen, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all of these things that Jesus talked about in Matthew chapter 24 and 25, when you see these things that I've been mentioning to you come about, you know that the time is near. In fact, right at the door, standing just on the other side of the door. Now, guys, Jesus was speaking about his death and his resurrection, but he was also talking about his second coming. The second coming that we are awaiting right now. Now, guys, again, get this in mind. It is important for us to know that there are different seasons. Say that with me. There are different seasons over this past 2,000 plus years. And the things that Jesus said would take place in the last days, in the final days, are clearly evident today. Today. I know that people have thought in the past, you've heard me say a million times, well, they all thought that Adolf Hitler was the Antichrist. Some people still think that Adolf Hitler is the Antichrist and that he'll come back again. I don't know. The fact of the matter is, whether it is today, tomorrow, a month, or a year, you best be living today as though it's the last. You best be living it today as though you were convinced as though Christ was coming back tonight. I want you to look with me at Matthew chapter 25, beginning with verse 1. As recorded in Matthew 25, Jesus said, at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like. I want you to say those first three words with me loud and proud as though you're very, very awake so I don't have to be concerned, okay? I already turned the heat off up here. I'll turn it off back there as well, I promise. All right? So y'all are with me. Ready? At that time. These three words are being overlooked all the time. You cannot overlook them. In other words, guys, things will be different during different seasons. Jesus is talking about a particular season, okay? And things will be different. And so he says, at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like. Now, guys, we would do very well to be very attentive to these changes of seasons. But we would do very, very, very well to be especially attentive when we see that the season associated with the last days are at hand. When you see those days at hand, we should be very, very attentive. Now, Jesus gave 3 warnings. How many? 3 teachings recorded in the book of Matthew, chapter 25. 3 lessons, 3 warnings, quite frankly, that we would be very, very wise to keep at the forefront of our minds. not in the back of our minds, but in the forefront of our minds as we recognize that we are, in fact, in the last days. I don't know how many churches are preaching about the last days today. I've been planning to talk about this for months. I spent a long time thinking about these things, preparing them long ago. Do I find it ironic that on the eve of when I'm preaching what I think is the pinnacle sermon of this series, you have Hamas and you have the Gaza Strip attacking Israel? That's a little freaky to me. Did I lose sleep? Well, not this time of year. I sleep really well, especially after taking a couple of Benadryl, right? But I'm going to tell you, Amy sees it in my face. And instead of watching football yesterday evening, I wasn't watching football. I was watching the news for the first time in a long, long, long time. Jesus gave 3 warnings, 3 teachings recorded in the book of Matthew. We would be wise to keep right here in front of us, on the forefront of our minds. The first teaching, guys, we have already began to study. It's the parable of the 10 virgins. But here's what I want you to recognize this morning about this teaching. Guys, this teaching is describing a group of people, in this case, 10 young women who had all, everyone say all. They had all clearly chosen or made covenant with the groom, which represents Christ. We are not talking about people who do not know, or people who have not heard, or people who have rejected the groom, Christ, but rather those who have recognized the value in following Christ, the groom. The first teaching, or the first warning, is about 10 young women, all. Everyone say all. 10 young women who all eagerly look forward to the coming of Christ, or the coming of the groom. And yet, the warning is, though 10 said, yes, Jesus, yes, absolutely, I'm in, count me in, sign me up, I'm all good, that's what I want. And yet, it says, 5 out of the 10 missed it. They failed. It's not simply enough, church. It is not simply enough. Don't listen to anyone who tells you that is enough just to say, Jesus or not Jesus. I'll pick Jesus. And you check the box, you fill in the circle, or whatever else. It's not simply choosing to be on the side of Christ rather than the alternative. That's what this parable is telling us. You had 10 people who thought that they were good, who thought that they were ready, who thought that when the groom came, that they would be ushered into his presence. And yet, everyone say, and yet. And yet, guys, there is a huge warning here. And it should cause you to shudder. I remember when I was a kid and I would get in enough trouble that Mom would call Dad, and Dad would literally come home from the fire department and say, "You boy." I remember, in fact, one time he said, "What are you doing?" And I didn't know the word for shudder. But I sat there and my whole body shook once because I shuddered. Guys, I am telling you, this parable of the 10 young women should cause you to shudder. The next parable, guys, the next teaching, the next warning that Jesus gave is, quite frankly, somewhat similar to the first. It is. But instead of Jesus being likened to the groom in the second parable, Jesus is likened to he's likened to to that of a incredibly successful, wealthy businessman or businesswoman, if you'd like. In this parable, the business owner, this wealthy business owner, has several employees or managers, if you will, who work for the owner. And in this parable, instead of us being likened to the bride waiting for the coming of the groom, we instead in this parable are those employees or those managers who work for the master. Now, maybe when I say this or you read this, it seems as though this doesn't sound nearly as flattering or as loving or as promising as Jesus' first parable when we are described as being his bride that he longs for and desires. Guys, if this is what you think, then you're wrong. You need to look more closely, really, at what this second parable is saying. So let's look at it on the screen behind me, starting with verse 14. Randy, just follow along. I think it'll make sense where to move the slides. Beginning with verse 14, it says, and I have to note, it says, again, it will be like. Guys, what is the it in this opening sentence? Again, it will be like. Guys, again, at that time, in that season, the kingdom of heaven will be like. Guys, Jesus is talking about a specific season. And again, just as in the first parable, Jesus is talking about the last days, the final days, the end times. The second parable begins by Jesus saying, in essence, and I change a couple of the words, but this is common algebra, if you will, included with English or Greek or whatever. Anyway, it says here, let me find it. It says, in the last days, the kingdom of heaven will be like a man going on a journey. But not just any man, a very, very wealthy man, a businessman, a man who's done very, very well for himself over the years. And this man, he goes on a journey, and before he goes on his journey, he called his servants to come to him. And when they came, he entrusted his wealth to them. Guys, please note here, these are not strangers to the business owner. These are servants. And these servants aren't meaningless people to the business owner. These are people that the business owner has known for a long time and has entrusted and has entered into a relationship with, a covenant with, if you will, a contract, if you will, such to the point that the business owner entrusts to them his wealth. Guys, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to give somebody some money, some of my money, I'm going to make sure that I know them very, very, very well. I'm going to know everything that I can about them. I'm not entrusting a lot of my resources to someone that I haven't known, but rather only to those who I have grown over a long period of time to trust. Jesus continued. To one of his servants, the master gave 5 bags of gold. You have no idea how much money that was back then. 5 bags of gold is a redonkulous, incredible amount of money. So to one of his servants, the master gave 5 bags of gold. To another, he gave 2 bags of gold. And to one, he gave 1 bag of gold, each according to their ability. Then the master left and went on his journey. The one who had received the 5 bags of gold went at once. Everyone say at once. He boogied, he left, he got busy immediately at once and put his money, his master's money, to work. And as a result, this servant gained 5 more bags of money. Everyone go whoop, whoop. So also the servant with 2 bags of gold, also an incredible, ridiculous amount of money, took the master's money, immediately went out, put it to work, and this second servant gained 2 more bags of gold. Everyone go, ha ha. But the one who had received 1 bag of gold, a whole lot of money, was nervous, was anxious, had all kinds of things going on in their head, and instead took the bag of gold, his master's money, dug a hole, and buried it in the ground, fearful that he would lose it or squander it or do something. Everyone go, pfft. Now look at verse 17. After a long time. Do those words sound familiar? After a long time? The bridegrooms were waiting. They had their lamps trimmed. But the bridegroom was a long time in coming, it says. Look again at what it says. After a what? Long time. You see the correlation. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, Master, check it out. You entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. Take a look. I've gained 5 more. His master replied, wow, whoop, whoop. Well done. The whoop, whoop is implied, all right? Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. Guys, I remember when I used to bring home report cards with C's and D's and a couple of F's on them. I remember when God began to do a work in my life, and he used Mrs. Riley, and I took 5th grade the second time. And I remember when that first set of report cards came out. Mom, do you remember it? Do you? And I came and I was ecstatic, blown out of my mind. And I showed Mom my report card, A's and B's, mostly A's. And I remember Mom looking at me. And I remember it as clearly, Mom, as that time when we were standing out in the hallway with that 4th grade teacher and how horrible that was. I remember this as well. Honey, wow, I am so proud of you. Which would you rather hear? Oh, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. You know what? I've entrusted you. Where am I at? Blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to find it. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I entrusted a few things with you. Really? A few things? 5 bags of gold? You call that a few things? And yet, Jesus, the Master, says, I will put you in charge of many things. Oh, really? And then he says the words that I think are among some of the most beautiful words in the entire Bible. Come and share in your master's happiness. To the one who had been given 2 bags of gold, this person also came. Master, the servant said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold, but look, check it out. I have gained 2 more for you. The master replied, you rock. Okay, that was Peter, but anyway. Well done, good and faithful servant. Look at you. You have been faithful with a few things. I'm telling you, I'm going to put you in charge of many things. And come, It's like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory. He looks at, oh my lands, why can't I say his name? What was the little boy's name? Charlie. He looks at Charlie and he says, Charlie, you have no idea what awaits you. And as a little boy, it's just like that. Jeff, you have no idea what awaits you. And I can't wait. I die inside. I die inside to hear those words. He says to the guy, you've been faithful with a few things. I'm going to put you in charge of all kinds of things. You have no idea. It's going to be incredible. Come and share in your master's happiness. But guys, then there was the fellow, and it should cause you to shudder. It should cause you to shudder. It should cause you to go, oh, somebody give me a red marker. I have to underline this. Then the fellow who had received the one bag of gold came, and he said to his master, he said, I knew that you are a important man, a hard man, a powerful man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And quite frankly, I was afraid. And so I went out and I dug a hole and I hid your gold in the ground. And when I heard that you were back, I went out and I dug it up, and here it is. Here is what belongs to you. And the master said, you wicked, lazy servant. What's the matter with you? So you know that I harvest where I have not sown. You know that I gather where I have not scattered seed. What's the matter with you? At the very least, very least, you could have just taken the money and put it on deposit at the bank with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. You, come, take the bag of gold from the man and give it to the one who has 10. For whoever has will be given more, and those who have been given more, they will have an abundance. That word for abundance is so much more than you think it means in the original Greek. They will have an abundance, an overflowing. For whoever does not have, he says, whoever has will have an abundance, but whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And then he turned to the servant. He says, go, take the man and send him outside, out into the darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Take him out of my presence. Take him out of my presence. Out in the darkness, where he'll not be able to see what is right and what is wrong and whatever, and where sin and the effects and the horribleness that acquaintance sin will cause him to gnash his teeth from now until the end. Listen to me carefully. In the first parable regarding the 10 young women, waiting for the groom's arrival, they are just like the 3 servants who worked for the wealthy businessman. The 5 young women who were wise and watchful were like the 2 servants who each worked hard and each doubled the money that their master entrusted to them. But the 5 women who were foolish and distracted and who did not prepare and who ran out of oil, they were like the one servant who took his master's money and buried it in the ground, having nothing more to show for what the master entrusted to him. In the parable regarding the young women, those who were found faithful entered into the wedding banquet. In the parable of the talents given to the 3 servants, the 2 servants who were faithful entered into their master's joy and were entrusted with great, amazing things. So again, let me restate this to you as clearly as possible, because they say repetition helps us to remember. Both parables are about what it will look like in the last days. Do you know what it will look like in the last days? Forgive me, Karen. Forgive me. Your brother's name who passed away and went to be with Jesus? Wally. Wally worked for a parachurch Christian nonprofit organization. He worked so that people in far off countries that we may not even know the name of or know what continent it's in, who don't have internet, who don't have much of anything, who speak languages where they click and pop and go blah 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 blah, and and different things in order to communicate to one another. Karen's brother Wally worked so that the Bible could be translated to those kinds of languages so that the people, even in the farthest corners of the world, could hear the gospel message and read the gospel message. Today, pretty much, every single place, every little nook and cranny, is that how that goes? And corner and whatever else of the world has the gospel available to them. Pretty much. Maybe so, or if not, real soon. Available. Do you want to hear the gospel of Jesus? No? Well, okay, but it was made available to you. Do you hear what I'm saying? I need something to set here so then when I walk away, I'll know where I am when I come back. Both parables are about what it will look like in the last days. These, I truly believe, are the last days. Second, in both parables, it's not describing those who are not aware or who have rejected Christ. Guys, in both parables, they describe what we would say today are church-going folks. People who have heard, people that it has been presented the gospel message to, and they say, sure, sign me up. Sign me in. Can't wait until Jesus' return. And yet, 5 of the 10 in the first parable missed the boat, who thought that they were in. 1 of the 3 in the second parable missed the boat. What do you think that the warnings are about? The warnings are for you. Be wise, be careful, and do not miss the boat. Because many will, who think that they're secure, many will. I'm not making these things up. This is the Bible. These are Jesus' warnings for the people in this season, the last days, the final days. We have people all around us who have had the chance and have heard the gospel. Some say yep, some say nope. We're talking about those who said yep. 5 out of the 10. 1 out of the 3. This is Jesus' warnings. And so lastly, we come to the third teaching recorded in Matthew chapter 25. Familiar? But the thing of it is, guys, is as we look at this last passage, please recognize that the people that we're getting ready to read about are people quite familiar with Jesus. People who know how to say all of the right things, who know all of the right answers, who have gone to the Christian concerts, who have gone to church, all of these different kinds of things. Guys, these are people who believe they are in covenant with Jesus, and yet, everyone say, and yet. He didn't give enough emphasis to the yet. It's and yet. The Germans know how to say that. And yet. And yet, guys, look at the warning that Jesus gives us. It's on the screen. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, the Son of Man, Jesus, will sit at his glorious throne. All of the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. You know what? When I grew up in church, I always sat on this side as looking up. You remember, Kay? You remember where I would sit? You know, Mom would kind of sit there. There for a while, they would sit in the middle. But the thing of it is you know, in time, we began to sit over here, and the youth group would kind of sit towards the back, and we'd get in trouble and all kinds of horribleness. You can ask Kay about that later. The thing of it is I kind of come to realize, you know what, when I go to a church service, this is going to be funny because next week we're going to see what happens. But I'll tell you what, when I go into a church service, I usually don't sit on that side anymore. I usually sit on this side just because of this passage, you know? So anyway, you'll see. Yeah, I'll say it again. All the nations will be gathered and they'll be separated, you know, one from another, like a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right. You all are the sheep, and you all need to move. No, the goats. I mean, I'm serious. You know, when I get to heaven, I'm going to look where Jesus puts me. Am I at his right hand? Oh, thank you, Lord, I'm at his right hand. You know, I mean, seriously, I think about this. I think I've dreamt about it. I've thought about this so much. Come on, Jeff. Almost done. The sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, look at this. Don't let this escape you. Come, you who are blessed, my Father, take the inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was put in prison, and you came and visited me there in prison. Then the righteous will answer the Lord, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, you thirsty and give you something to drink? When were you a stranger and we invited you in, or needing clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come and visit you? And the king, Jesus, will reply to him, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. You know, guys, I got to tell you, there's a person that goes to this church, and I won't single the person out. I'll try not to even give you a gender. But I love this person. And I'm eager to listen to this person and just talk to this person. Because this person is so secretive and quiet. And this person won't let his right hand know what his left hand is doing. I don't think lets there we go, spouse know what they're doing or anything else. I guess I did tell you that they're married, but this person does stuff all the incredible time. Goes and visits a friend who is at a hard place right now. Wasn't going to tell a soul. Goes and finds out something and goes and comes to try to be a blessing. And wouldn't tell a soul. Constantly just doing things. Doesn't tell a soul. And yet, I kind of find out about some of these things. And I realize that there's a pattern that's going on. And I have often thought to myself, if I'm aware of X, Y, and Z, crying out loud, there's probably the whole English alphabet, let alone the Greek and the Hebrew as well. Well done, my good and faithful servant. I was hungry, I was thirsty, I was naked, I cut my finger off, all these things. In Jesus' name. Then the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. That was me. You did that for me. You did it for me. Even if they don't come back and say, wow, thank you for all that you've done. Even if it, or whatever else. Even if they take it and leave it and we walk away, that doesn't matter. I want you to know that, because sometimes we do things for people and we kind of think, I don't even know if you didn't do that for them. You did that for Jesus. And your reward is coming. Then the King, Jesus, will tell those who are on his left to depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty. You didn't give me anything to drink. I was a stranger. You didn't invite me in. You weren't welcoming me to your town, city, or country. I needed clothes. You didn't clothe me. I was sick. I was in prison. You didn't look after me. In fact, you didn't do squat. They too will answer the Lord, Lord, what do you mean? Well, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger, needing clothes, sick in prison, and not help you? Yeah, well, you know what? What you didn't do for all of these really, really poor people, you didn't do to me. That was me that was there. And then they will go away to eternal punishment. But the righteous to eternal life. People sit there and say, well, he's not talking about the church. He's talking about the non-church people. No, he's talking about the church. He's very, 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 very clearly talking about a church. Because in another place he says, well, what do you mean? We went on mission trips in your name. We healed people in your name. We did this in your name. All of these things in Jesus' name. I was a part of the church. It cost me $100,500 to go on that missions trip. And we did all of these things in your name. What do you mean? He says, dude, I never knew you. That wasn't you. I don't know who you were serving, but that wasn't me who you were serving. You think about it, and I think you'll recognize who it was you were really serving. Your ego, I don't know. But that wasn't me. No, he's talking about the church here. Almost done. The first parable about the 10 women is about commitment, about love, about devotion, and the true desire to follow Christ. You will seek me and you will find me when you what? When you seek me with all of your heart. With all of your heart. If the other things are more important to you, then you keep seeking. Get it figured out. Straighten it out. Figure out. Jesus comes first and foremost. If Jesus is the number one thing, we're not doing this because it interferes. I'm not doing this thing because it interferes. Jesus and Jesus' things come first. No. Not going there. Not doing that. Yeah, but that means, well, you know what? God will bless us for it then, won't he? What was the missionary's name that went to just north of Australia? And they flew in and he prayed and whatever else. And there's books, his wife's still alive. What's the name of that missionary? And they went and they killed him. But after they killed him, his family members went like 4 or 5 years later, talked to them, realized what was going on, and the whole tribe got saved. What was that guy's name? Anyone remember? Elliot! Jim Elliot. Love me some Jim Elliot. Love me some Jim Elliot. Love me some Jim Elliot. Yeah, but what if you know what? God's got it. Dude, can you imagine Jim Elliot's prize? Can you imagine? I'm not so sure if there wasn't a chariot that came, people just didn't see it. Jim Elliot. Oh, wow, love me some Jim Elliot. The second parable about the talents and the 3 servants is about commitment, devotion, loyalty, and the desire to follow Christ and to obey his commandments as we wait for his return. The first parable, the parable about the 10 virgins, is in line with God's greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. 5 of those women did not love the groom with all of their heart, with all of their mind, with all of their soul, and with all of their strength. If they were, they would have had oil. They would have been thinking about it. They would have been so prepared. They would have been like the Boy Scout, with absolutely anything. They would have had like their backpack and canisters and everything else. Man, they've been thinking about it for days, weeks, months, years, decades, just thinking, waiting, making absolutely sure he's coming, he's coming, he's coming, and I'm ready, and I'm not letting anything get in the way. The second parable is in line with God's second greatest commandment, love your neighbor as yourselves, and also with the Great Commission, go into all the world, winning people to Christ, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything that I have taught you, and I will be with you surely even to the very end of the age. Guys, this is what it looks like for those who will be found ready when Jesus returns. Guys, our kids, I want to do absolutely anything and absolutely everything. They need to be ready. I don't want to just teach them. I want to teach them to obey. I want to baptize Jameson a third time, 15 times. I don't care. Jameson, are you get it? Are you with it? I want the little Adcock kids. Man, I just want them like, yep, Jesus, yep, I get it, man. I don't want to just teach them. I want to teach them to obey. I want to teach them to obey. I love our children's pastor. Don't you dare let her slip through our fingers. Don't let her go back to Haiti or Chile or Zimbabwe or wherever it is that she's from. Don't do that. Don't do that. I love her. There is nothing that I would not do for her because she loves Jesus. She gets it, and she wants these kids to know. She wants them to know. And I have no problem partnering with her. And you need to partner with her. And we need to partner together. We need to raise these kids, and we need to raise them to do right. But the problem, if it is, guys, is if we're not ready, and if we're the 5 who miss, or if we're the 1 who miss, and we're not ready, how are we going to teach our kids to be ready? So we get ourselves ready. Oh, my lands, it feels so good to say that. We get ourselves ready. And I know I get offensive. I know people have left the church because I spoke truth to them very, very candidly. What good is it to lie to people? Let's speak honestly to one another, and let's speak truthfully to one another. Let's speak to people in love, and let's tell them the truth, and let's spur one another. Do you know what to spur one another means? That means you get that nasty little thing and you poke them in the butt. You say, you need to get your act together. What are you doing? I love you. Stop it. You're really ticking me off. Because the fact is you're screwing it up and you don't even see it. So come on, let's get it, right? All right, guys, I've spoken very, very plainly to you today, haven't I? I've been very, very candid and honest with you, have I not? My hands are clean. I have been faithful and obedient in sharing this. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to share it more, and I'm not going to try to drive it home. Jesus needs to be first across the board. Needs to be first across the board. There'll be plenty of people standing there who Jesus was second. I'm not making these things up. Read Matthew chapter 24. Read Matthew chapter 25. Study it, look at it, see for yourself if that's not exactly what it says. For those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Many will, many will not. Let me pray with you. And while I pray, you are welcome to run to the altar. There's not going to be music. There's not going to be a bunch of emotional stuff that's going on. It's going to be us before Jesus dealing with things plainly. No gimmicks, no nothing. Pastor, how dare you? You're going to single me out. You can take care of it where you are, if You must. But there is something about coming up saying, yep, this is where I am. Church, help me. Jesus, help me. I mean business. I'm serious. This is where I am. I'm going to pray for you. You do as you need to do. But don't you dare get cold feet, and don't you dare walk out of this place without doing it. If Jesus is speaking to you, guys, come on. We're adults. Take care of it. Gracious Father, I thank you again that you're not wishy-washy. I thank you again that you don't tell us the things that we want to hear, but you tell us the things that we need to hear. Father, I'm thankful that you love us even while we're a mess. You love us and you long to bring the truly good things, your things, into our lives for the benefit of living in this world. But Lord, ultimately, because you long for us to see you and to know you for how you truly are. And you long for us to just surrender, to die to the old self, and to surrender ourselves to you and to say, Lord, whatever you say, I know it's the best, and I'm not going to hold anything back. You are my Lord, you are my King. When you say jump, I'll do it. When you say that, I'll do that. Lord, help us. These are the things that we want for ourselves. Hear our prayers, Lord, as we confess ourselves before you. As we confess, Lord, we've made a mockery of it. Will you come and will you do for us these things? Will you give us ears to hear? And will you give a heart, Lord, that is a heart, Lord, that is circumcised. A heart, Lord, where you've come and you've done the surgery. As we eagerly wait with our hearts longing for your return, as we eagerly wait with our hands to the plow, doing the work of your disciples, not distracted by the things of this world, not looking to the right or to the left or loafing or goofing off, but doing the things because we know, Lord, that truly there's more joy in doing your work than just sitting back and receiving the garbage of this world. So help us, Lord. Help us to be more Jim Elliot-like, more Jesus-like, willing to die to ourselves both spiritually, but even as they did, if necessary, physically. Lord, reprioritize. Move the things around. Help us to get the things in place as they should be. Because you love us and you have mercy for us, do these things. And I ask this in that name again that's above all names. In Jesus' name I ask these things. Amen. Amen. Okay, now listen to me. I want to say two things real quickly before you leave. Number one, this may be the last time that I wear this Band-Aid on my hand. Yesterday and the day before, I went most of the day without any Band-Aid on my hand. My hand looks really ugly and gross right now. I'm being serious. There's a lot of black, crusty, scarred up stuff. There's flesh, literally, that I take the fingernail clippers and I try to clean up and stuff. I suspect by next Sunday it'll look a lot better than it is today. I'm really concerned when I come to the preschool and the kids see my hand. I don't want to gross them out and freak them out. I don't want to gross you out and I don't want to freak you out. The next time you see me, I'll probably have my hand in my pocket but I'll probably be bringing it out, and together we'll get used to this thing, all right? That's the first thing. Secondly, I know that I have kept you long, several weeks in a row, long. Brian, where's your mom? There she is. I'm glad that you weren't downstairs in the nursery today. But I know that I have kept you long. I won't do that. I needed to get through these sermons. I needed to convey what I really desperately wanted to convey to you. I won't apologize, but I thank you. And I want to tell you that the next time you hear me speak, my intentions and goal will be done at 11:30, 11:35 at the latest. We will get back to that. I'm not going to be preaching for an hour all the time. All right? Are we all good with that? Are we all good with one another? Yeah? God bless you guys. Y'all dismissed.